Ever do anything that unintentionally went viral at work? Here's what I did. At my previous job we had a guy that would high five people to cheer them up and keep them in a good mood. The store manager noticed and mandated that all employees must high five each other in passing to keep morale up. The mandate was upheld until an employee was caught masturbating in the bathroom. That trend ended much quicker than it caught on. The store manager: I like it. 21 years old, just out of college, and starting my big boy job as a PC technician. I get a call from a user telling me that her password isn't working. The first thing I always check is if the password has expired, because people will swear up and down that it hasn't. The command to check this is simple: netuser, username, domain. I did this command instead: netsend, username, domain. That caused a message to pop up on every screen in the domain, with a woman's username. I should mention that this was a fairly large company with over 200,000 users on this particular domain US. I caused a spike of several thousand calls to our central help desk 1-800 number, and my manager never even cared. He said crap happens, and this is how we learn. I remember my college network allowed students to net send. My mate sent Bob sucks balls, or something like that. 5 minutes later, teachers started to pile into the room to find the culprit. Turns out it said message from XX being the computer name, which in the college was the room number and computer number. One day I decided to tell a coworker happy birthday out of nowhere as a joke. One of my other coworkers heard this and told him happy birthday as well. Others heard that and everyone was wishing him happy birthday. It was funny. Then the next day, I did it again, and the same thing happened. The next day, again. This is in a facility with about 150 people on staff at all times. Now, every day is this guy's birthday. We bring him cards, cupcakes, cakes, gifts. It's become a spectacle, and we announce it at every meeting. Meetings happen at the beginning of every shift. We have all decided that on his actual birthday, no one is going to say anything. Period. Then at the end of the shift we are going to have a surprise party in the break room. It's in a month and a half and it is going to be awesome. I used to work at a canvassing organization and you would spend a lot of time standing in one place. Eventually I got in the habit of swinging my hips in a circle and for some reason that caught on in the office and people started calling it the mustard barrel. I'm not sure why, but it caught on so much that they started teaching it as part of the office training. When I was in the military, I had access to classified materials and had an email account specifically to send those files. One day, as a joke, I put sent from my iPhone at the end of one of the emails. I didn't realize that the message would be forwarded around. As soon as people saw that, they started contacting their supervisors about getting their own classified iPhones. Eventually it made its way up to some generals and they lost their crap over it. I had to go report to my base commander and explain that it was a joke. He thought it was funny, but was peeved that he had been getting calls all day about it. Well, mine isn't all that great, but I used to work in a machine shop as an apprentice for a company called Berry Plastics building plastic injection molds. On some of the surfaces of the part area on the cores cavities there was a sandblasted finish that was required. Since at the time I was the noob at the shop, I was the one that had to do it. Unknown to me at the time, their sandblaster was a royal piece of crap. So when I started sandblasting the parts, I started getting frustrated at the machine with the first 15 minutes of operating it. After thinking about how it works, I decided that if I would just kick it a bit it would shake up the sand at the bottom. So I proceeded to do just that. My method worked pretty good, as the blaster would work fine as long as I kicked it a couple times every few minutes. Although after about 2 weeks of doing this, wearing steel-toed boots I might add, the bottom of the cabinet had a large indentation about 3 inches wide and about an inch deep. I decided to tell my superior that this had happened and all he did was laugh and say that I was the only one who could get the blaster to work right for long enough to make it useful for big jobs. He then proceeded to call me the Master Blaster because of the previously mentioned reason. The knowledge of the dent in the blaster got throughout the shop as well as my new name. Thus my name for the next 2 years were Andy, the Master Blaster. It's also worth noting that after a while I was moved to the grinding group, where the parts were precision ground to their final dimensions, and on a particularly bad day, I told a coworker that I felt like I was just grinding my life away. That saying stuck and became common nomenclature among the employees, especially in the grinding group. 2 men enter, 1 man leaves. I worked in a small office as an intern, and I was stationed at a desk that was the furthest away from all the windows, and it was poorly lit. As someone with poor eyesight, I decided to bring an old desk lamp to work, flexible arm type. Anyways, a few weeks later I noticed everyone else was getting desk lamps because they thought since I had one, everyone should be able to have one because they looked cool. Kind of a lame story, but hey, desk lamps. I recently motorboated my boss in front of most of my co-workers during a night out for someone's last day. I don't think I will ever live that down. I work in IT. This was about 5 years ago and luckily I had a really cool boss manager. The day after my 21st birthday I was in the bathroom throwing up for about half the day. I worked at a satellite office so not everyone could exactly hear me puking in the bathroom, but anyway. After throwing up I went back to my desk and passed out leaning back in my chair when I was supposed to be monitoring server statuses. Anyway, my manager logged into the high-def pan-tilt webcam they had for monitoring employees at the SAT office and he zoomed in on me passed out in the chair and took a picture and drew a comic with Z's in bubbles over my head and drew drool coming out of my mouth and emailed it to the whole company including the 2 owners. One time I was in the back listening to music. A co-worker comes back there and says, "What are you listening to?" I say Styx, and he says, "What are you, gay? I'm not in the mood." I pause a bit and I look at him and say, "You can't ask me that." He says, "I'm not like a manager." Yeah, I can. I pause even longer, as that's probably one of the stupidest things he can say, seeing as how both he and I were middle management. I say, "No, you can't. You can't ask anyone that. Not worth my time." Kind of whatever. I didn't think anything of this incident. It was kind of, "Hey, I like Styx." So what? I told a couple people about it, cause it seemed funny. Then I come to find word got around. I get called into the office. They almost fired my co-worker for his utter disregard of the gender-based harassment policy. I didn't want him fired. I told them to please not to. He was just being stupid. They had several meetings with him. Then everyone knew about this. They had to make sure everyone in management was aware of gender-based harassment guidelines. Give a review for employees. It wasn't a mess. It just became an event that I couldn't hide from. Then, in the aftermath, everyone became unsure if I was gay. I totally ran with it. I love ambiguity. I'd talk about dates and use gender-neutral terms, not give names. People saying "have a seat" and responding "oh no, I'll stand." I'm kind of sore. We started to call my friend who always came my partner, who, actually, was my business partner, so it was accurate. I did my best keep things subtle, telling some the girls "you're almost my type." TL. DR. Co-worker asks if I'm gay. My defensive reaction then prompts everyone to not be sure if I actually am and I have loads of fun at their expense. I know someone who went to a business lunch meeting. It was a pretty classy place for a reasonably important meeting. Quite blokey too. Everyone was ordering drinks from the bar like the usual scotch, beer blah blah, and this one younger kid ordered a strawberry milkshake. He was known as Milky by management from then on. Strawberry milkshakes are freaking awesome though. Now I want one. I once unintentionally nicknamed a very nice girl bitch face. Before she even got hired, my boss told me that they had interviewed someone with the same first name as me. I was like, "oh frick." Whenever that happens, people always refer to me as the tall one instead. I'm just going to call her bitch face instead. He told the story to other people, and then when people did need to clarify which one of us they were referring to, it was either me or bitch face. I told her about it and she thought it was funny, but I felt so bad. I had iTunes on my computer as I was doing design stuff all day and didn't need to communicate that much. Headphones on. I didn't realize other people could listen to my stuff via the network, and one day my computer slowed down to a crawl. Turns out I had 12 people listening to my music library. I became known as the guy with the awesome 90s rock. Same thing happened to me but with my P folder. It's a long and embarrassing story. I work at a document digitization company where I am in charge of delivering all of the digital content to the client's end. but they still haven't given me an official title as the position I'm in has never existed within our company before. Instead, they ask me every few months what I want my title to be. For about a year I kept saying Batman for obvious reasons they would not allow this. Until recently, my co-worker photoshopped the Batman logo to look like the wings are made out of the letter D and using the Batman font type digital delivery around it. I've changed it to my contact photo for my work email and our internal tracking service. Ever since then my bosses have been calling me various forms of Batman that incorporate my job duties and I love it. Logo. Show it to us. P. I'm a crew chief in the military, and here are the two stories that really ring a bell. One year we had an exercise where they were firing live missiles. Well, the jet came back and I was doing my inspection. I found this little pin in one of the storage doors and I thought, cool, souvenir, so I thrust it in my pocket and continue on with my inspection. Next day comes around and the weapons flight chief comes up and is like, have you seen this pin this long, yada yada. I pulled out my poker face and noped my way through the conversation. About 5 minutes goes by and he is still standing there. At this point I knew it was serious crap, so I just came clean. Alright sir, I did take it, I thought it was cool and took it home. Cool souvenir, I will bring it in tomorrow. Instead of getting my butt chewed he shakes my hand and says all is good. I bring it in the next day and the first thing everyone asks me is, so you're the one who stole the diaper pin? Frick. Of all the things, it's a diaper pin, so for about 2 years I was the diaper pin thief. Second one, we stopped flying for a little while and we got a Zamboni to clean out the passes. Protected aircraft shelter of all the grease and grime on the floors. I just had shoulder surgery so I was nominated to be the Zamboni driver since I couldn't do much anyways. The flight chief decided I looked awfully happy on the Zamboni so he nominated me the Zamboni DCC, dedicated crew chief, and everyone joked about me having my name on the Zamboni and doing inspections on it like it's a jet. That one stuck until I left 6 months later. Diaper pin thief and Zamboni dedicated crew chief. Told my slightly obnoxious deli co-worker, hey kid, I'm a computer, stop all the downloading once. He repeated that for months, losing his crap each and every time. This is why you can't share internet humor with the civilians. It's too much, too fast for them. I work at the Center for Disease Control and Prevention. I dropped the wrong glass bottle, let's just leave it at that. At my uni they had a program that would let you run programs on unused machines. A friend wrote a script to do some utility but he put in that script a recursive call to launch the code on every unused machine. So he brought down the uni's computer network. Hahaha. Every time I'm in a room or place with a lot of computers, all I can think about are the many ways I could grief the crap out of everyone. I worked at a Mexican restaurant that would always push us to sell Quizo. I ended up making a song about Quizo. Do that Quizo dip. This grew into about 10 different Quizo songs that everybody would sing. When people came up with new ones they would run and tell me and be so excited. It was amazing. Some examples. It's 7 o'clock in the dot, I got a big top ready to eat. I'm gonna sell them 7 quesos all coming with some taco meat. As I walk through the valley of the shadow of Quizo I take a look at my dip and realize there's nothing left cause I've been dipping my chip for so long now even my waiter noticed that my queso's gone and I ain't never had a chip that didn't deserve it. A little Quizo on the tip cause you know it's worth it. 25 quesos on my table. Heyo. I gots to get fed. I put my hand up on your chip. When I dip you dip we dip. QUESODIP, do you know what that means? She got her own Quizo. She got her own chips. BYU tripping? You know I'm Quizo dipping. Upvote for the one to the tune of Gangsta's Paradise. Went so well with the song. I told a deaf guy on the phone that he wasn't worth my time. It was one of those relay calls where they're chatting via text to a person, and the person is talking, and I misinterpreted what he typed and thought he was a scammer. So he comes in with his girlfriend, wife, sister, friend, whatever, and she makes a huge scene and I immediately own up and apologize to the guy. So yeah, for a long time not worth my time was the in-joke for the whole company. I am an actor at a haunted house. I made a lady crap her pants. She was the leader of a girls volleyball team that went through so she had to get back in the van and everything. I won the Scare of the Season award at work. I am a haunted house patron. I crap on your floors. I don't give a frick. We had a strict what happens outside the office stays outside the office rule. So much crap happened that would have been viral in any other workplace but were just never spoken of again at my workplace. 1. We all got wasted at a very high-end hotel. Went to boss's house. He danced on his dining room table in his underpants and 3 staff members had a threesome in his living room. Only ever discussed when one of the female staff members requested her top back. 2. Security had to escort me out of an event for my own safety after 2 male staff members got fricked up on drugs and attacked me. 3. 4 words. Boss, body shots, receptionist. 4. A stirring rendition of what in the butt sung to a cabbie while we all assumed names of staff members of another law firm. You said we would never discuss that. At the army, before soldiers begin their guard duty, they go to the armory to sign for equipment, and I was responsible of making sure everyone arrived and so on. So one time I show up with these optic sunglasses and keep them on at all times, making me look distant and menacing. The guys responsible for the guard duty laughed and started calling me the sheriff. Ever since I walk around the base with completely random people going, hey, it's the sheriff. I work in visual effects for commercials at a major studio, with close to 750 employees over 4 locations. I'm American, but the company is predominantly British. I was working on a specific effect where a dove instantly appears via a magician's trick. So, being an American, I wanted something that goes poof, so I sent a company-wide email to all the artists seeking poof elements. Little did I know what poof means for Brits. Dang those Brits. Whenever one of my callers, I supervised student callers for my college's phone fundraising program, would get stressed out about a bad call, a really busy schedule, etc., and would complain to me, I'd tell them, calm down, Stressica Simpson. It caught on quickly. I'm quite proud of myself. I like to pull one good prank every few months and never with the intentions of being viral, but one idea really went viral. Went and printed off a ton of QR codes and with the help of a co-worker, she and I posted them in the stalls all over the building at a university one late night. They read true wisdom is never found in a textbook. It is found scribbled on a wall in a bathroom stall. After that for months you would find massive amounts of QR codes with sayings done by other people all around the university. I'm IT and military. There was a very large exercise going on, and I was one green suitor in charge of 4 shops with about 20 contractors under me. We were supposed to have 6 military between all the shops. I was run ragged. One of my contractors was helping another unit get their database online. We were doing it as a favor. They didn't belong to us, and it wasn't our responsibility for their database, but we were helping them out. Well, the end of the day came and our DBA went home. I was still working trying to finish up all the paperwork, and one contractor was working late because he started late that day, offset shift because of the exercise. When the other unit calls and asks to speak to our DBA, I informed them he went home. They told me to call him in. Now if you don't know, contractors are their own thing in the military. You can't just call one in because overtime has to be approved because of cost, so on and so forth. I've already talked to my boss and he said there is no reason for us to call in contractors for things outside of emergencies within our scope. This was neither an emergency, nor within our scope. The dude on the phone was irate, telling me that he will call my boss and get me in trouble for not calling in the DBA, which I already knew wouldn't happen. I did my best to be tactful for as long as I could, but he was wasting my time. I was hungry, and I wanted to finish up my paperwork and go home to eat. After about 5 minutes of trying to calm the dude down, I just blurted out, "We aren't calling him in because you aren't our customer." The other contractor whipped around in his chair and stared at me wide-eyed and just started laughing his butt off. The guy on the phone exploded. He wanted my supervisor's phone number, and all sorts of other things. I told him to call his office at 0900 tomorrow morning. From that point out, "You aren't my customer" became the catchphrase for when you weren't going to do something. No, I didn't get in trouble because I was in the right the whole time. This was about 3 years ago. I worked in an office of about 30 people. We were all crammed into our conference room, which only seats about 25 people. Anyway, I was fortunate enough to have gotten a seat at the table. To my left was one of my mentors, Paul. He was the guy who most looked out for me when I first got hired. I was about 27 at this point while this guy was around mid-50s. Anyway, our boss went through his notes for the meeting and finally Paul chimed in on something. He's kind of an animated guy, uses gestures a lot when trying to get his point across. Well, whatever we were discussing got Paul's finger wagging. He would have his index finger pointing out and shaking it while he was talking. I don't know what came over me, but while Paul is mid-sentence I grabbed his finger and in one daft moment made that fart noise with my lips, loudly. So picture 30 business professionals deep into a fairly serious conversation when one of them pulls the other guy's finger and imitates a farting noise. Everyone lost their crap, though. People couldn't breathe, they were laughing so hard. Everyone except for my boss, stone-faced. Fortunately I kept my job, but I gained a lot of street cred around the office that day. I went out with a bunch of guys at work to a nice bar when I was an intern there a few years ago. Long story short, it was an epic night and I ended up banging a girl I picked up at the bar back at her place and went to work the next morning wearing the same clothes as the night before. Luckily I keep a clean polo in my desk at all times for such occasions, but when I walked in a bunch of the people from the night before were sitting in the cafeteria and saw me come in. As the shirt was bright green there was no mistaking it and they all knew immediately what happened, including my boss. I got hired back recently and when I went in for MG interview people I didn't know asked me about the green shirt. In 3rd grade, for show and tell, or whatever the 3rd grade equivalent was, I tied the ends together on a piece of string and made a bunch of cat's cradle-like figures from a little book I had showing how to do them. Literally every kid in the grade was doing the same thing by the end of the next week, and it was completely over a week from then. Don't think I've ever had that universal of an impact before or since, and that was my introduction to memes. We called them fads back then. While I was in the Navy we all had these cheap little pens as standard issue, clickable black plastic ballpoints. So one day I'm on watch and I'm disassembling one of these pens and I get to the clicker bit on the end and I take the metal covering off of it and discover it's hot pink underneath as opposed to the typical white plastic I'd found on other boring watches. These were made of recycled materials so I figured that it came from some melted down highlighters or something. I put the pen back together leaving off the metal end and kept the pen in my breast pocket with the pink tip sticking up. Gave me some individuality while still being all government issue. So that touched off some other guys ordering boxes of pens from supply and spending hours taking them all apart looking for more non-white tips. Found the occasional greens and reds but I never saw another pink one. My older cousin works in a large company and one day the woman sitting across from him told him he had a face like an actor's. So as a joke, she took a picture of him and asked him to sign it to pin up on her desk. Then, someone else saw the picture and asked for one as well. Soon, the entire floor had the same headshot of my cousin, signed, and pinned on their desk. Then, a representative from an out-of-town branch saw it, thought this whole thing was hilarious, and asked for one. Before long, other people from that branch asked for photos as well as people from other branches. My cousin is a celebrity within this business for no reason whatsoever. Well, mine was in high school, not work, and it was my senior year. It was about a month shy of the last day of school. I was in my English class and my high school did not require us to take finals as seniors. What my teacher did every day for the rest of the school year was read excerpts from any book in his collection. Only one I remember was Studs Lonergan and even the excerpt I can't recall. My teacher would read, then we would discuss it and ask questions, then discuss these questions and so on. My teacher was the coolest freaking guy ever. He survived heart and lung cancer. He also kayaks every year from the tip of mainland Florida down to Key West in a fundraiser known as Castaways Against Cancer. He is reading one day and stops and says, "My god, my eye is dry." He grabs some eye lubricant and he decides to read the label out loud and I hear him say retinol gel. He stops and says, "Wow, that could be misunderstood pretty easily." Well, I heard that in my state of senioritis not giving a frick mentality and it kicked in a little late because he had started reading once more. Right at the moment IT clicks in my brain, I loudly bark, haha, rectal gel. Everyone just busts their crap laughing. Rectal gel went on to be reiterated by every single senior every day. Even better, we got senior will and testament in our school paper. 305 students went on to pass a tube of the finest rectal gel down to the teacher they most cherished that year, and not one of us got our full testaments published because we all mentioned rectal gel. I do miss being in a school of all boys screaming rectal gel down the halls every day. We have MTV on all day in the background at work, and I once sounded a horn whenever Beyonce's Single Ladies played on MTV. Now whenever the song comes on, someone will sound the horn, just out of instinct. People get uneasy if they hear the song without the horn. I work installing networks in data centers. When pulling in cables, we number them with a marker pen. 1, 2, 3 etc. But with the numbers 6 and 9 we write 6 and 9 to avoid confusion. Well, I didn't know this. So when I saw it, I went about asking everybody what is a 51x cable. So now I'm known as 51x. Cool story, bro. This was in school, and it wasn't me exactly, but a friend. I was second in the meme chain. One day I noticed that someone had graffitied Tim the Enchanter on the desk I sat in math class. I had not yet seen Monty Python and the Holy Grail, so I just that's weird. Later, bored in another class, I also wrote Tim the Enchanter on my desk, and then maybe again in another class. By the end of the school year, half of the furniture in school had this written on it. I was perplexed and didn't mention it to anyone else until years later, in which my friends and I discovered what happened. One friend wrote the original, then later saw my copy of it and thought it was strange. So he started writing it other places too. Then another friend who knew of Monty Python saw this strange graffiti and also began to replicate it, and so on and so forth. I was working at a call center, and me and my buddy would always call each other on the phone when it was slow, and answer with some stupid crap. I saw my friend was calling this one time and answered in my gayest voice, fabulous tech support. I hear a customer's voice and just completely panic and hang up right away. What happened was my friend had hung up, and another call ended up ringing through for a perfect timed switcheroo. Once everyone heard about it, they made sure to include phone mannerisms for answering the phone for all new hires, and they always told my story. My boss did this one. I work at a restaurant with a guy named Carla. A new girl named Carla started one day. When the boss met her, he said, "Carla, that won't do. We already have a Carla. We'll have to call you Bruce." She became Bruce. Was the funniest thing ever. From that day on, everyone called her Bruce. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.